so forth. We need to get these facts across, and that there's fundamental change in the mode of taking decisions. Change in the weighted voting system, where population becomes the prime criterion, loss of the commissioner, and so on and so forth for 5 years out of every 15. These are the facts we need to get across. I belong to a group, the National Platform, which is essentially an information and research centre that tries to produce accurate information on these treaties. We've been at this business for quite a long time in one form or another. We've got very good relations with Jens Peter and his colleagues. I've helped to work to some extent on these reader-friendly editions of various treaties, which Jens Peter has done invaluable service by bringing out. Because even though the Referendum Commission is a statutory body, as you know, set up under the 1998 Referendum Act, charged with the duty of telling citizens what a referendum is about and maximising the turnout. And originally they had the job, as you know, of setting out the yes side and no side arguments, but that was taken away from them in order to pass or get through the second Nice referendum. The Referendum Act was amended. The Referendum Commission still has the job of telling citizens what the referendum is about. And the government may want to wait till the last minute. It's the Referendum Commission's job to tell the citizens of Ireland what is in this treaty. If they do a proper job, if they're adequately resourced, if they're given enough time, they can do that job. The Referendum Commission is, well, I don't you will elaborate on that. They're the Ombudsman, the Clerk of the Dáil in Sinnott, and the Controller General are the 4 permanent members of the Referendum Commission. And then there's a High Court judge brought in to chair it. But the government would try and leave it to the last minute and say, we have to wait till we've got the bill through the Dáil first, setting out the text of the Constitution Amendment. But that will only be a constitutional change to ratify the Treaty of Nice. Everyone knows that we have a referendum on the ratification of the Treaty of Nice. There's nothing that would stop the government at present setting up the Referendum Commission and ask it to begin the job of informing the public about the content of the Treaty of Lisbon, and what that means. Even if the actual specific constitutional amendment hasn't yet been worked out. And that, I think, is something we should urge. The government is talking about producing booklets. They have a website with, criticisms of their opponents, which is quite improper, using public resources and public money to make party points of view or political points of view. The government should set out objectively the facts. But if they're not doing that, well then they're in violation of the McKenna judgment. And there's been talk about the government producing booklets and flooding the country with booklets about the Lisbon Treaty. That's not the job of the government, it's the job of the Referendum Commission. And I think it's a challenge to all of us personally to do what we can locally, either to join existing groups or to set them up if they're not existing in one's area. I'm of the opinion, for what it was worth, that we're very desirable to get geographically based groups. Tralee against the European Union Constitution, Drumcondra against the European Union Constitution, Galway, Sligo, Ballsbridge, doesn't matter. There's nothing to stop a group of people who are concerned about something to get together in their area with their friends, their neighbours, and make waves. There will be documentation available. We're happy to provide it. It is in very modest form. It can be copied. And of course Cathy and the other groups, the People's Movement, Frank Cohen, the campaign against the EU Constitution. There are quite a number of groups, and more will come into being. There's a reform group that was set up yesterday. And there will be other groups, I'm sure. And we can use that. But personally, we're all challenged, I think, to in the next 4 months, there's just 4 months left, sometime in May, probably, or June, they'll have this referendum, to make sure that in our area, among our friends, acquaintances, neighbours, that they know about this constitution. Because if this goes, well then Irish independence is gone completely, and a most reactionary development has occurred with the imposition on 500 million people of a most reactionary, backward and anti-democratic constitution. Thank you.
Thank you.
You all know Patricia, and I think she's going to tell us what she's going to tell us, but Anthony has already hinted at some of it.
Thank you very much, and just first of all, thanks Cathy for inviting us here today, and it's a great meeting. It's good to see some familiar faces and some new faces, but from all around the country, because I think that's going to be essential in this campaign. Joe Noonan mentioned down there about Raymond Crotty, and I think we do have to, because I was thinking today about this, that had it not been for Raymond Crotty, we wouldn't even have this referendum, and indeed Tony Coughlan and Paul Callan, I see him here, and Joe himself played no small part in that event. But I think, because you listen to Bertie Ahern, he almost thinks like it's his it has been his prerogative to decide, that the Irish people could have a vote on this, and somehow he thinks he should be praised for the fact that Ireland is having a referendum. If the truth be known, he doesn't even want to have a referendum, would prefer that we don't have one. And the other issue in relation to McKenna judgment and the Referendum Commission, if the truth be known there as well, they think it's absolutely ridiculous that they can't spend our money to push one side of the argument, and that is why they took the role away from the Referendum Commission after the first Nice no. But I just want to go through a few points, because just on the treaty itself, I mean, there are a huge number of issues in relation to the treaty. A lot of them we've heard it all before. And one interesting thing I heard, I think it was Dick Roach or someone on Questions and Answers, one of the Fianna Fáil ministers, saying about your man Ganley, the Libertas group, about, we've heard it all before. And while I wouldn't disagree with the minister on that, yes, we've heard it all before, what Mr Ganley has said, but we've heard it all before again and again and again. But those issues that we talk about, democracy, all of the issues in relation to the problems in the direction Europe is going in, have been happening over and over again, and nothing has been done to address the questions that we have raised at every single referendum since I have been involved in the Single European Act. Now, and some of the key things would be in relation to, as was pointed out here, about the lack of clarity on the Charter on Fundamental Rights, and the lack of clarity in relation to which court, whether it be the Court of Justice or the Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg, that takes precedence. Ireland has decided to opt out of the Justice and Home Affairs issues, but opting out is grand, but they can opt in at any time they like, and we don't even know when they will opt in, and their only reason for opting out was because they knew that that would be one of the issues that might decide in Ireland to get a bigger no vote, because Britain is opting out of it, and they knew that they would have to opt out for the time being. So it's just delaying the issue. The whole issue of militarism has got worse and worse, and we can no longer, deny that. The European Defence Agency was set up without any discussion, our own ministers fully backing it, and now, our ministers going to these meetings, and even people from Department of Enterprise taking part in the European Defence Agency, which is basically about armaments industries. That agency has now been brought into the treaties, which has given it a sort of a legal mandate to a certain extent, even though people were questioning, I think, in the UK about the validity of the European Defence Agency using EU resources to push this. There's other things like about the ratchet clause of the self-amending treaty, the passerelles, like the fact that this treaty will be self-amending, which gives less and less power again to people at a national level. And the other issue is in relation to how the treaty is being presented, because one of the things one of our speakers here this morning or this afternoon mentioned about the irony of the thing about the national parliaments having the right to protest, big deal, and about the initiative, of people to gather a million signatures so they can, present something. But one of the things I found interesting on that, about the right of initiative, of 1 million people. At the moment, we have well over 1 million people throughout the EU wanting a referendum on this issue, wanting the right to vote on this issue, and the governments in every single state are denying those people, and blatantly and openly admitting that they're denying the people the right to vote because they can't trust them to vote the way they want. And I think in this referendum that is going to be one of the key issues, I think, that makes it in some ways different from every other referendum, is that it's blatant and open by all of the political leaders throughout Europe, that not only are they hoodwinking the people, but they're actually denying them the right to vote, knowing that people want the right to vote on this treaty. And if you just listen to some of the leaders and what they've said basically a referendum is dangerous, no, we can't allow for a referendum, if we have a referendum in this country, they'll want one in that country. And then you have people like Amato from the former Italian Prime Minister, who said, we deliberately made the treaty, you look at some of the quotes from them, they're just choice, we deliberately made this thing so confusing and so difficult and so incomprehensible that people wouldn't understand it and wouldn't know that they have the right to demand a referendum on it. And Giscard d'Estaing, the author of this whole project, he said basically that, well, in not so many words, but he said, if people knew what they were voting on, they wouldn't accept it. So we have sort of hidden it and shrouded it, and we're tricking them into voting on it. And that's basically what he's saying in simple English, that if people really knew what this was, they would not accept it. That's why we have to make it incomprehensible. And that's the contempt that European leaders have for their people throughout Europe. And that's the thing I think that we have to get home to everybody, that this is a treaty that has been rejected in 2 of the founding member states of the EU, that it's been repackaged, put back out there, and those 2 countries where the people have rejected it aren't even going to get the right to vote on it. And that those people people, not only are those people's rights being denied, but all the citizens throughout the member states of the EU are being denied the right to decide the future direction of Europe.